Hi there, Dan Sanchez again, managing broker in Seattle. So we are going to talk about advanced strategies during a bid war. I think we're only going to really talk about the escalation clause mostly. Everything, it's funny how things kind of tie into that. So we've already talked about escalation clauses. That's where you agree to pay X amount more than the next highest bidder up to a certain amount. Now, some people might say, well, why wouldn't you just say $100 higher than the next highest bidder? Why would you say 5,000 or 10,000? Well, that is very simple to answer. And that is because really not all offers are exactly the same. You want to make the escalation amount high enough to make the seller make it an easy decision. And let's face it, if you're bidding, say it's an $800,000 property and you're willing to pay $840 for it, do you want to lose the property by $100? You have to ask yourself, how much more am I willing to pay, or lose it by even? So, if you say $100 more than the next highest offer or $1,000, in the greater scheme of things, on an $800,000 property or whatever, it's kind of negligible when other things are factored in. How much of the appraisal are you waiving? Are you waiving any of it? Is the other offer? You want to make the escalation clause, the escalation amount high enough to negate whatever issues your offer might have when compared to other offers. And remember, you don't get to see the other offers. Unless you're successful, if you're the successful winner gets to see the offer they beat, okay? But it's very important to have the highest escalation amount that you can. Now, another strategy I've seen people use, and I've seen it used on me, as a listing broker, it just benefits the seller, and me, so it's fine. But I've seen buyers where they will put a ridiculously high ceiling on their escalation clause. So they'll say something like, I will pay $10,000 more than the next highest bidder. Say in the case of an $800,000 property, they might say $10,000 more than the next highest bidder up to $1.2 million. Okay. And they're typically only really going to do that. They're not going to waive the finance contingency entirely in a scenario like that, because let's face it, the property is going to appraise way under 1.2 million. Okay. And they don't want to have to make up the difference. So typically an offer like that may say something like, I will waive, $50,000 of a low appraisal. So if it appraises $50,000 below what the escalation went to, then they would have to pay an extra $50,000 for the property. So it's not a bad strategy, and I've seen it before the pandemic hit. I was starting to really see that more often, and it's a little frustrating. Really, what it comes down to is who's going to waive the most amount of the appraisal, or maybe waive the entire appraisal. But it gets really tricky. Let's say you're willing to waive the entire appraisal, and you're bidding up to 900,000, okay, versus somebody who's going to waive $50,000 of a low appraisal, but they're willing to escalate much higher. Let's say the first high offer, say he's got a $20,000 escalator, and you're willing to go to 900, and he's now at 920. The fact that he was willing to go to 1.2 is meaningless if the second high offer is only 900. Then he's only has to pay the escalating amount, which is, we'll say 920 in this case. And say if he's agreed to waive $50,000 of a low appraisal, and you've agreed to waive all of an appraisal, well, it becomes a difficult decision for the seller, okay? Because what's it going to really appraise for? If it appraises for, if everybody thinks it's going to appraise for $850, then the $900,000 offer is practically just as good. So the math can get kind of complicated. So that is just one of the escalation strategies I've seen. The most important takeaway is you want to have the escalation amount the highest you can stomach, okay? The highest, I'm talking about the actual escalation amount. So 10,000 more than the next highest offer, or 5,000 or 20,000, whatever you can stomach. The other thing that I counsel people on is whatever you put in as the top amount is probably what you're going to wind up paying for it. So, don't be somebody who is sad that they won the bid war. Okay. And again, you have to weigh that against, what the rest of the offer looks like. What's your real exposure? Have you agreed to waive any of the appraisal amount? If so, how much? There are different ways to limit your exposure. Anyway, there you have it. Those are some bid war strategies as it relates to the escalation clause. And you see how the financing kind of ties into that too. And definitely we're assuming that you've done a pre-inspection if you know it's going to be a competitive bid war situation. So again, please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.